So before this accident, when you were that young, angry man,
Yeah.
is it fair to say you had no belief in the afterlife? You were godless, to put it simply, in those times, or did you have a belief? Were you anchored in any spiritual beliefs before the accident?
No, I wasn't at all, and it was almost like a very dismissive and don't want to talk about it. Like that's how my attitude was.
Shit's about to go down.
I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tatts with Aaron Della Vedova.
Hello, friends, neighbors, lovers of tattoo. Welcome back to Chats and Tats with me, your host, Aaron Della Vedova. We've been pumping out a lot of tattoo artist episodes lately, which I love. Got so many good ones still coming up from Gods of Ink in Germany. But I've been craving a little something off the beaten track, and I think I have that today. So before I get into the introduction of my guest today, I just want to talk a little bit about tattoos and their meaning. You know, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and the reality I've noticed is tattoos have all sorts of levels to their meaning. I mean, ultimately, I would say, and I get in trouble for saying this, tattoos are relatively meaningless. Trust me, when you're taking your last breath, you will not be thinking about tattoos that are on your body. You will probably be thinking about the love that you've given to others, the love you received, the people that are in your life that you care about, and the memories you created with them. So in a big picture way, I always say, you know, they're just tattoos. But in our little microcosm of day-to-day reality, they do have meaning. And there's a reason people get them. And it ranges. It goes from, you know, being silly, just to have a little fun moment with a buddy. You know, I've sat on a snowmobile up the top of a mountain, and my son tattooed my leg. And it's not a great tattoo, but it's one of my favorites. And every time I look at it on my leg, I get filled with joy, and I smile. And it's not because it's some perfect thing. It's because of what me and him did that day, and I'll never forget it because it's marked in my skin until I die, at least. There's also the, you know, feeling accepted by your social group. You know, for some people, it has a lot to do with that. You know, they don't fit in possibly to the typical culture that's out there, and they have some friends that are into alternative music, and tattoos are part of the culture. You get some tattoos, you feel more bonded with that culture. It's fantastic. It's all good, by the way. There's no bad reason here. Your reasons are your reasons, you know. There's the rite of passage, you know. You're a young man, and your father had tattoos, and all his buddies had tattoos. Possibly that's one scenario. You getting a tattoo is like a rite of passage. You feel like you're now a man, or you're now a woman, or whatever you're striving towards. And that's awesome. Artistic expression. For some folks, it's literally just an act of art. They love art. They hang art in their homes. And in this case, they decorate their body with art. It's just a way to wear art. Their love for art is so deep that they're willing to put it in their skin. It could symbolize a significant event, a marriage, a death of a loved one, maybe a spiritual belief or a spiritual breakthrough, a permanent reminder, possibly. You know, I've tattooed on the back of my hands. If I put my hands into a prayer pose, if you look at them, it says, fuck it. People think I'm being goofy, but fuck it to me is a spiritual statement. You know, in life, for me, we can never be 100% certain about anything. You can get pretty close. You can decide, I'm pretty sure this is the girl I should marry. Pretty sure this is the career I should pursue. But in the end, we all have to take a risk because you don't get guarantees in life. And what I always say when I get to a point where I think I have the right decision at hand is, fuck it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and think about it anymore. It's time to take action. And if it's the wrong decision, I'll know soon enough, and I'll take corrective course action. And most of the time, not most of the time, but some of the times, it's a mix of all these things. A little bit of the first one, the second one I mentioned. It's just a blend of those things. But there's one more category that I think we're going to get deeper into today, and that is tattoos can be a very healing process for some people. I had one client, he went to war, he came back. He never told me the details of what happened, but I don't know, but I'm pretty certain it had a lot to do with watching people die and maybe even killing people. And he was very troubled with a lot of PTSD. He got an entire bodysuit from me and told me straight up, I don't want to look in the mirror and see the guy that went to war. I want to see a different human being. He was transforming from the outside inward. Now, he was doing inward work as well, but together it was a way for him to help work through his trauma. So today's guest has some words around that, I believe. He's been through a lot, and he's gotten a lot of tattoos since this event in his life, and I thought it would be a really interesting person to tell that story. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Greyson Savo. Did I say that correctly?
Greyson Savo.
Totally fucked it up.
It's okay.
People call you Greyson or Gray?
Yeah, Greyson. Yeah, I was going by
Well,
Gray.
your emails are saying Gray and stuff.
Yeah, but people started calling me Greg, and I'm like, I'm not Greg. So
I like Greyson better.
yeah.
All right. Well, you are a lot of things in life, as we all are. And just before you get started, I wanted to let the audience know you're a musician, which started as kind of a poet, moved into musician. You're now the lead singer of a band called the Moonburns. By the way, you guys, if you're interested to hear some of Greyson's music, it's kind of a bluesy rock sound with some deep emotional lyrics mixed through. Super good stuff. You'll find it on Spotify. Again, that's the Moonburns, one word. And for a living, day-to-day job, architectural draftsman. So enough said on that. Just some big highlights on kind of who you are. I know you're much more. But having said all that, I want you to kick this off with this event that occurred to you, which was a defining turn in your life.
Okay. You got it?
Go.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Sweet. Okay. Thanks for having me here, man. This is super cool, and the vibe is right. So I'm just going to jump right into what happened to get your attention. May 3rd of 2021, I was ejected from a convertible going 110 miles an hour on the 99 freeway in the midst of the night. It was like 10 p.m., not sure what day. I was going too fast, and I was not hindered by anything but emotional uncertainty. I was sober in the accident, but I was in a hurry to get nowhere. And there's a long time where I thought it was a suicide attempt, but I have been since then in some intrinsic work. I found that I was just making mistakes. I was just going too fast. I ended up hitting a black van, trying to pass a black van. I don't remember any of this, right? Because I was ejected going 110. The seatbelt actually broke through, and I flipped my Audi TT convertible, totaled it, and they kept me alive. They found me immediately after, and I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks, and I had been pronounced dead for 2 minutes, 30 seconds. They already had signed basically my parts away. My dad was in there. He had to sign that they would donate my body parts. They had affirmed to him that I'm not just brain dead. There was no way I would ever be able to talk, let alone walk again, right? Like that was all there. He's not gonna make it. He's just not gonna make it. And my grandmother had told me there was a person in the emergency room with them that said, he's 25, he might have hope, right? That's all. So my grandmother, being very, very faithful, she was kind of the pillar of like, let's just leave this up to God. Like and everybody else was trying to figure out what to do. I mean, obviously, this was all my family felling around and came up. It was in Visalia, so off the 99 freeway. I went on the wrong freeway going up. I was going back and forth to Washington, where my sister lives. I was living up there, and I was going to join the military. I was going to join the Air Force. I thought that would be a good direction, having lost some jobs, hopped around different states, lived in Utah, lived in San Diego, was getting let go from jobs, and just running from myself, essentially, right? I didn't understand that it was okay to not know.
How old are you at this time?
Now?
No, at this time.
Oh, 25.
Okay.
When that happened, I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
And you're how old now?
29.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was in the hospital for 4 to 6 months in and out of. So I was in the hospital, like on life support, Visalia. Then I went to Fresno. Then I went down to San Diego, where I live and still live. And then I was in an inpatient rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation, where they had taught me how to walk. They had taught me how to talk. I didn't know how to say anything. Granted, I did. I guess when I was coming out of my coma, my first memory was my stepfather, Roger. He brought me a Lego, just a little like bionicle Lego thing, and my injuries include the functional amputation of my left arm. So it was ripped from my spinal cord in the accident, right? Tons of skin grafts, a lot of scarring, traumatic brain injury. But with my right hand, I was able to start piecing this Lego together. And Aaron, memories of who I thought I was started coming back into my head. Like I started to remember my name. And they would come in and ask me, what's your name? When were you born? What happened to you? And I'd like never get it right to what I'm been told, right? They said like, I was begging my parents to go park my car. Like through the first 5 months that I was living in a hospital or whatever, or 3 months, I was like, can you go get my car? Because I was concerned because it was mine, right? It was my little Audi TT. And I was like, that's going to get me somewhere. And I guess one of the first things, this is before I, started working in an anonymous program and found out that I'll actually be 3 next week, which is exciting. But I asked my mom in the hospital, right? I'm hardly talking, and I asked her for a shot of tequila. That was my go-to. Like that was like one of my first sentences. And she was like, "Son, you're not in a hotel. You're in a hospital." And then I said, "Well, then make it a mimosa." That's what I said. And it's like it was just this. It was just back and forth with this, conviction of what my perspective of reality was so just not accurate, right? I was in delusion, and I was like convincing myself it was okay to be in delusion. I didn't know what honesty was. I didn't know. And coming to this instance of like survival, right? When my mind started coming back to me, I felt the fear, and we'll get into the fear. We'll get into that when I go more into my piece. And I felt this darkness and this just drive to destroy, but I was immobile, right? And I was talking to Aaron a bit about this too. I was talking to you about how I couldn't really walk, and I had to rely on people to bathe, help me get in and out of bed. There was times where I was just like too afraid to scream out for help, right? And that pretty much sums up like how I was getting through life until then. I was too afraid to tell you I was hurting. I wanted to show you, right? And I was showing everybody through my actions the pain that I didn't understand, right? And just the deviation of that, just trying to get away from it. And I remember when my dad helped me because after the accident, right, to get back on track, I ended up in the hospital for a long time. I lived in the inpatient for about a month and a half. I couldn't stand it anymore. Also, people are like, you can't be afraid of needles. Look at all the tattoos you have. And I'm like, there's a difference when they're taking your blood, right? Because there was, if you're ever in an inpatient facility and you think your heart hurts, make sure. It was a broken rib, but I complained about chest pain. They had to take my blood every hour for the next 48 hours. Yeah, they'd wake me up and be like, okay, we got to do this again. Because who knows? I mean, I had some pretty catastrophic injuries, and after all the testing, they don't want to miss something. So I just remember it was doubled down on that, afraid to ask. I was so afraid to ask for help because uncertainty is fear, right? I think like just what we don't know without faith is fear, right? Like if I don't know something and I'm not going to trust that it's going to be better for me than what my limited imagination can come up with, then I'm going to be afraid.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And familiar sense of isolation, familiar sense of it's familiar, right? So I think there's parts of us that we've talked about a little bit, like identifying with that, right? And I was identified with, I just don't know, and I don't give a, I don't know what the cursing policy is here.
You can curse all you want.
Yeah. So
Podcast.
I just didn't know, and I didn't give a fuck. And it was like the opposite of what your tattoo says. It was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to die anyway. And I grew up, Aaron, telling my friends I was not going to live till 25. I said that since I was a little kid. And this is something that I revisited lately, doing an amends to my father. Back when I was a little boy, I used to scream, I hate myself. I used to just scream this. I was confused. I didn't know where I was. My parents were split up, and I didn't have any control over where I went. I didn't know how some stuff happened to me as a young child that happens to a lot of people in society these days, and I didn't know how to talk about it. So I joined martial arts, and I got pretty proficient at hurting people that I thought didn't like me. And that was my thing. For a long time, I identified as that, all right, talk shit. And I was like a 6 foot flat, scrawny ginger guy. And I'm like, but I can kick you in the face. And in school, man, I was like, bully me, like fucking bully me. Like that was my spite, my pride, because I knew how to hurt people. So I fell into that. Like, yeah, go ahead. See how you're going to hurt me more than I hurt myself. Right. Because I mean, I have a group of friends now that we don't shoot our wounded, but our wounded usually shoot themselves. And that's the truth of it, right? And I was very much, the society's pressure of being more than I am was overwhelming to me. So I went and I got really diligent at my practice of martial arts, jiu-jitsu, high school wrestling, kempo. I just wanted to know that false sense of security, that if I was threatened, I could handle it. And there was a couple of parts of my life where that really helped me out. Like, I mean, knife stuff. Like I was able to like secure a weapon from a guy in an instance. And I'm not Superman, but if you know what you're doing and you have faith that you know what you're doing, things usually turn out how they should. Now, that doesn't work well with spite, right? I mean, that negativity is negativity. And I got all over the place on that. But back to this, just in the hospital, not knowing what was going to happen. I surrendered to thinking like I'm just going to die. Like I was on the clock, right? I was figuring this is how I'm going out, and I'd rather be drunk. That was my mindset. I was like, okay, if I'm going to die, I mean, I'm in the hospital for what felt like, I was telling people it was 9 months. I don't know how long it was. My dad was like, you're really embellishing there. And I'm like, but he's like, but you've also had severe brain injury. So, you know, let's get the facts down. So I don't know. I'll follow up. I think it was closer to 6 months. But I mean, that's still a long time to be in a hospital, especially when you don't know where you are or who you are. It's a scary spot to be. Yeah. And I'm on all sorts of stuff when I'm in there, right? And
going through surgeries.
Yes. Oh, it's funny. I was just going to bring this up. I was sitting with my grandma one time, and this poor nurse, I feel for her now. She put the wrong gauze tape on a wound that wasn't healed yet on me, and she had to like slowly rip it off, and it was taking my skin with it. And I remember that. Because that's pain, right? That's like, and to the peace, right? The peace represents to me surrendering to the pain, because that's what it is. It's transcending suffering. That's what the dragon represents. And I learned that while getting the peace, right?
Before we go too far into the tattoo, there was something you brought up earlier that I think is worth revisiting. You died for 2.5 minutes. And I think you mentioned earlier something about, tell me about that and what profound effect or whatever came out of that for you.
Okay. This is a touchy subject for me because it means a lot, and I don't want to sound preachy or soapboxy, but let's face the facts, man. This is a hard thing to relate to. I mean, but we're all there. We're all there. So I have my father is very close with me now. He's got 42 years of sobriety. My godfather, his name is Danny. He had 36 years and then killed himself, right? That's just some context of when I was on the other side, the isness. People ask me, what was that like? And it's not comprehensible. Like I can't really fully conclude what that feels like to you, but I can kind of use the way that I've delineated in the past, it's like it just is comfortable. It's like absolute comfort of a freedom from form. Like that's kind of what I felt, and it didn't feel like there was a timeline. I felt like it was a long time, and it was no time, right? But what I felt was my father mixed in with my godfather, mixed in with a bunch of people that are no longer here, holding me, not with their body and not with their voice, but pushing me towards the overarching theme of, no, son, you're not done here yet. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, man, I am convinced that my father's love for me kept me alive. And the prayer from my grandma and all her friends and my mother's love, and but feeling his presence. And I asked him about this during my amends. I was like, how did you get through this? Because I don't know how I got through this, but it had something to do with you, Dad. And he said, it was simple. I prayed. I was like, what did you? I said, what am I learning? How can I help? And when must I relax? And I'm like, that's it? Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, the rest isn't up to me. And it's like, okay, so what do I take from this? And he said, well, why don't you just try your best? That's what he said to me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, from that day on, man, I've done a lot of meditation on connecting with that isness, mm-hmm. that being, that presence of like afterlife. And it's almost just, in human words, I think the easiest way to kind of boil this down from my understanding, it's a moral compass that most people call God. That's what it is. And it's bigger and more vast than human comprehension is able to take. That's why I can't really describe it, but I've experienced it on earth, like looking at someone in the eye and connecting. It's there. That's what's there, man. It's that, but magnified. I've heard, when I've described this at a more articulately eloquent way, I've heard people say, that's what I felt like when I held my son for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's life. That's life, right? Mm-hmm. So I think me choosing life, or life choosing me, really, is something I can bring to the rooms of recovery when I'm like, hey man, you have a choice. And I think being helpful is the right thing to do, right? It was deep, man. It was as deep as...
So before this accident, when you were that young, angry man,
yeah.
Is it fair to say you had no belief in the afterlife? You were godless, to put it simply, in those times? Or did you have a belief? Were you anchored in any spiritual beliefs before the accident?
No, I wasn't at all. And it was almost like a very dismissive and don't want to talk about it. Like that's how my attitude was. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And the prejudice of organized religion and the church and all this underlying resentment of what I didn't understand, it was easy enough for me to disregard, right? It was easy enough for me to be like, I don't even... But also, Aaron, I think for me, and the same with my means of recovery, it's like, if I do accept spiritual principles, I'm going to have to do some work. And that was where, like, I was hesitant. If I said to my family that, like, okay, I'm gonna do the 12 steps, like I'm gonna join then I'd have to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So I never did. I would always identify it as this alcoholic, drug addict guy that like didn't know what that meant, and that was enough. So before the accident, I was just kind of waiting to die. I was just waiting, and I thought this was the end, and then I wasn't done, right? Mm-hmm. There was one thing that happened that I'd like to touch on, that when I was because this happened through some more intrinsic meditation and stuff. I remember another conversation with my father, and I've shared this at meeting level, where I was young. I was like 5, and this is a memory that I asked him, because I was in trouble again. And I was like, I asked him, who is God? That's what I asked my dad. And he said, what is God? And I said, what is God? And he said, where is God? And I pointed up, and I looked at him, and he's mad. That's what I said to my dad. I said, he's up there and he's mad at me. And he said, no, son, no. And he takes my little finger and he points it at my chest. And he says, God's in there and it loves you. That's what my dad said to me when I was like 5 years old. And I wish I would have remembered that going through my adulthood, because that's comforting now, right? And that thing that's in us, that life force, that is beyond measure. Like, you can't buy that, man. Like, that's something that I think that's why we live. We live to experience that, right? I think we live to experience the evolution of consciousness through understanding what God could mean to you, right? So anyway, I know
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I love it. And so then obviously, so you have this accident. It takes a long time for you just to come back to who you are, where you are. But at some point, your memories and your consciousness regains itself, and you start knowing, I am Greyson. I've been in an accident. I'm going through these surgeries. I'm going through this pain. I'm going through all this. You understand what's happening at some point. You're angry still. You're still that same guy that had the accident at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, because you're not that guy today, the guy I'm talking to right now. So when does that old person die and this new person is born? Is it a poignant moment, or is it just a slow, gradual process? Or
It's both. I've been sober since June 19th of 2022. Right? That's my sobriety date. And you talked about the spiritual experience. There was a time where I was finding worth in my life. Things were starting to go really well. I had about 4 months of sobriety, and people were becoming my friends and encouraging me to share and talk. And I was like, wait, people are liking me. This is crazy. I thought I was supposed to be dead by now. Right. And I was in the pool doing physical therapy, like we talked about, with Eckhart Tolle playing. I had no headphones on. I was just in it. It was actually a cold plunge, and I was just in there. And I felt it. That same feeling I had in the coma shot through me like shattered glass. I was just like, and I started smiling, and I was like, oh, I'm alive. I was like, I'm a fucking alive, dude. And it, all of the unprocessed trauma I went through was immediately processed. And it was just too much. I got out of the pool and I was wailing. I was just so emotional. And I walked in and I was like, Dad, I need you. And he was like, good. And he came up and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm alive. And he hugged me, and he just hugged me tight. And he said, I've been waiting for this to happen. Welcome home, son. Mm-hmm. And I melted. And I'm like, and that gives me goosebumps now, man. I was like, oh, I'm here to help. And today, my dad's my bass player in my band, dude. We had a gig last night, and I turned to him and I'm like, this is better than the hospital, huh? And he just gets a little tear in his eye, and he's like, keep rocking, son. And it's amazing what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful, dude. Yeah. It's weird how for some people it can show up like that, almost like a bolt of lightning. And in your case, what I heard right there is it kind of was.
Yeah.
Why it took that long and why it happened in that cold plunge that day, I suspect it was, a lot of buildup, your soul, whatever animates you. I call it a soul. It doesn't really matter. It's that light of life that animates us all. Which isn't an alcoholic and is well aware that it's a gift to be here and to be alive. It's the ego that takes control of the soul and says, shut the fuck up. I know what's going on, Yeah. But somehow it had been talking and trying to talk to you and trying to get through to you. And it was working on you and working on you and working on you.
Yeah.
And then that day, for whatever reason, it was able to crack through that ego. You were probably just enough relaxed, or the cold water or whatever it was, or the Eckhart Tolle playing on the headphones. And it created a crack, and that voice shot through and you heard it.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
I felt it.
Felt it, right.
Felt
it's
it.
beyond words, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just, It was just big.
That kind of brings us to this tattoo. You've been yeah, this was a lot. Yeah. You've been tattooed a lot, but this latest piece that you just finished is for those of you who are listening to the episode. Some of you are going to watch us on YouTube, and you'll be able to see photos of it. But it's your entire front torso from deep up high on your neck and throat, across your shoulders, complete coverage all the way down through your front torso, down past your pant line.
Yeah.
And it's a huge dragon head. Patrick Sweeney, who works with me here at Guru Tattoo, one of my favorite tattooers I've ever worked with. Look him up if you haven't seen his work. Fucking absolute prodigy. Did the piece. And also I just want to add before you tell us more about that, having had my front done, and having tattooed for 30 years, I can tell everybody listening, if you haven't had your front torso done, it's some of the most punishing, brutal tattooing that a person could go through. Most people that get their fronts done, I sit with them for 4 hours, 5 hours. And Greyson over here is asking Pat to do 12-hour sessions on him. He can tell you more about some of why he did that and what the tattoo meant and what kind of healing it provided, what kind of cathartic reflection he was able to attain through the process of getting this massive, beautiful tattoo. So I kind of highlighted everything, but why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, man, thank you so much. Yeah, Patrick, he is such just a genuine human too, because I have a lot of personality. And, I was like, dude, you're going to have to tell me to shut up. Like, there's going to be times. And he's like, hey, man, I'm on your throat. You might want to keep it quiet, But, no, it was, it just kind of grew from there. I think, and I've learned this from my sister, who's also just a phenomenal artist up in Washington, that, like, I'm the canvas, right? So I have an idea. And I'm like, and I went to Patrick and I went to him to look at some scar tissue on my body, and I was like, hey, is this going to be salvageable in any way? And he's like, yeah, it'll take some time. It'll take some work. He's like, I don't really want to touch somebody else's work. Like, I'd rather do a fresh piece with you. And it was like an intuition, man. I just said, what about like a dragon on my chest? And he looked at me and he was like, nah, what do you mean? I'm like a big metal, angry dragon. And he's like, yeah, okay. Yes. How willing are you to do it? I'm like, dude, I have the funds right now and I want this. And he's like, okay, well, I'll send you some stuff. And then like a week goes by and I come back in and he has the stencil and he's like, if you're sure, man, this is gonna hurt. And I'm like, bring it. And that's how I went after this whole process. You talked about, I asked Patrick how long he's tattooed one person, and he said 10 hours. And I'm like, we can top that. And he's like, bro, what with your front? Like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And it's almost like there's a part of me that may be a defect, right? It might be an ego thing, obviously, right? I want to prove I can do it. But also it comes from a deeper part of me that's like, I've been through worse. Right. So when people,
much worse.
Yeah. And so when people are like, damn, that's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, ask me about it. Like that's part of the reason it's this glaring, aggressive dragon is because it's like, oh yeah, that's nothing. Like, that's what I like it's everything, but it's like, no, talk to me about how I feel. And because that's this dragon, this is skin. That's skin. It's like, I can take it on the skin. That's how I treated it. And I'm telling you, Aaron, there was some areas of this, and I mean, where I had, when the day I met you, you're like, how you getting through that? That's what you said to me. And I looked at you and I said, God and a mouth guard. And that's what I did, man. I brought an MMA grade, just mouth guard, and to chew down. And I just bit the bullet, and it's constantly this will pass, something. And I believed, I had faith, right? I had faith that something good would come out of this, even if it's just people out there that like are going through some chronic pain. Guess what? It gets better. It does. I didn't think I was gonna make it through the shit I got through. Hell, I didn't think I was gonna be rocking, singing in a band. I didn't think. It's not about what you're thinking. It's about how you're living, man. And the tattoo, there's a couple portions where the worst was in the 12 hours. When he was going over a line packing color down on like the lower abdomen, and I was squealing. I was like, bro, this is intense. And there was something Pat said to me really early on before we even started. He's like, I was like, because I was asking him how this is going to work, because I've never had, it's like you only have one full frontal. So I was like, and he's like, you're going to be talking to God a lot. And I was like, knowing like my spiritual health and fitness and wellness and helping people in the program and learning like that, humbling myself and trying to be of service is like my willing, that all kind of treats my ism, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to do, so I memorized a lot of prayers. I memorized and my lyrics to my songs. I would just go over them and over them and over them, trying to like cement them into my brain. But when it got down to how painful this shit was, because, I mean, functionally amputated left arm, dude, I've felt some shit. Nothing compares to this, the pain that I felt, not physical, when he was just going over and over and over on my abdomen. The prayer was just, please. That's it. I was just saying, please, I surrender. Please, help me. It was just constantly like, God, help me get through this. And counting, a lot of counting. I would just count to 12 and then back to 1 and then count to 12 and back to 1. And I mean, 12 hours is a long time to get tattooed. So
well, the best part, well, not the best part, but the unusual part is you asked for it. You didn't have to do that. You could have done 4, take a couple weeks off, come back, get 4 more.
Nah.
And I think you said something earlier that I wanted you to kind of extrapolate a little bit about was, the pain you had been given earlier in your life. It wasn't it kind of was your choice, but it wasn't like an overt, obvious choice.
Yeah.
And the tattoo was different in that way because it was your choosing, which I heard when you said that, and I'll let you talk a bit about it, but I heard sort of like, I'm in control.
Yeah. It was definitely a power move. Because, and I forgot about that. Yeah, so it's an art of surrender, right? That's with pain. Pain management is an art of surrender.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I've been through
life is the art of surrender.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the emotional convictions that I had that had dug me into this hole of despair, that was a lot of unprocessed emotions. And unprocessed thoughts turn into festering emotions. And those festering emotions will strangle you if you don't get help. And if it's silence, if it's God, if it's people, if it's something a routine, I highly recommend to people that are struggling with things, get a routine and stick to that routine. Routines matter most when you don't want to do them, right? So I know for me, it was like, I've been through something and I want to wear it on my skin. That's another part of this tattoo. It's like, I want to have something to like, look at these scars, right? Like that's basically what it was like. And yeah, it was a power move. It was the art of control because I was like, I know I can get through this. And I had faith that I'm like, with the shit I've been through. And I talked to you a little bit before about how my mental conception of things was very foggy and bewildered and diluted with mental hemorrhaging, emotional hemorrhaging, and like drugs and all sorts of stuff when I was in the hospital still, right? Like I didn't really experience with complete consciousness the severity of the pain I was in. So you just reminded me of this when I was getting tattooed and it was like at the peak of just destruction. I was like, you're processing. I would tell myself, I'm like, okay, body, you're processing. And I would just remember that like, this is the work you do. And that's why some guy, I was at a music.
Do you think, okay, what I just heard there is a lot of the pain you went through after the accident, obviously when you're going through surgery, they're putting you under, they're administering painkillers, they're doing a lot of things so that you really don't, because that trauma is still happening.
Yeah.
You could be unconscious under anesthesia, but your body, some part of your body is still feeling the pain of what they're doing to your arm that day, which is, if you were awake, would probably be blinding pain.
Yeah, agony.
This pain is being dumped into your body without it being processed to some degree. So some part of me is telling me, like, when you got the tattoo, you're not just processing the pain that the tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
You're processing the stored pain of everything you didn't get to process during your accident. It's almost like it was like a doorway to allow all that processing, all that pain that you had been through coming out in the tattoo.
You just gave me goosebumps because you just nailed something that I am now coming to realize. Yes, that makes sense, right? Because it was a lot of this, and the responsibility to my being, my soul, is to process this, right? It's like my body got through it, and my mind wasn't awake for it. So now, hey, wake up. We get to do this part together.
I find that life is some kind of teacher. It's a teacher, right? So how does life teach? It gives you challenges. And, to make this simple, like I gave the example earlier, perhaps you're an impatient person, and that impatience affects your marriage, affects the way you raise your children, affects the way you do your job at work. I mean, it's going to show up. Patience is a virtue. We all want to be infinitely patient if we could. But because this person is not patient, they find themselves in traffic and they're pissed, and they have a choice to make. They can find more patience, less resistance to the small inconvenience that's occurring to them, or they can spend the rest of the drive to work being fucking pissed.
Yeah, man.
That there was traffic on the freeway and it was an inconvenience to them.
Why is this happening to me?
Why is this happening to me? So that little traffic, I would say that traffic was, in this simulation that I think we're in, was specifically designed for that person that day to help them find patience. Now, the person in that car chose not to. So what life usually does, it'll elevate the lesson. And maybe next time it help, maybe you saw your finger off while working on a porch because you're rushing through it because you have no patience, and you take the skill saw and you just take the tip of your finger off. My father did that one, who is an extremely impatient man, who is a very patient man today, by the way. Love you, Dad. But I think in that moment, he was so impatient, and his impatience was just, and he chopped his finger off. Well, there's life elevating the lesson, a little more intense this time. You just took the tip of your finger off. And so when I look at your story, this young man full of anger and angst and confusion and all the things you spoke of earlier, I think life was delivering you opportunities to learn, small ones probably at first that you ignored, little bigger one. And I wonder if you look back on the accident itself and the events that transpired afterwards as exactly that. Life finally was like, okay, we're going to send you a very, very big wake-up call.
Clear picture.
A very clear picture. Yeah. And we'll see if you get it this time. Yeah. And even then, you seem to have fought it. Your story is inspired me, that's for sure. And I think everybody who listens to this is going to feel similarly. I mean, we all have our problems, and we might think they're big. I can sit here and say I've had a pretty blessed life, knock on wood. I haven't been through anything quite like what you've described. And, it's an inspiration because the little challenges I think I'm dealing with today, they just don't really seem all that fucking big anymore. Yeah. So kudos to you. You're back with the living. You're back with the awake, and you're working with a lot of others to help them. And you're spreading the word, and you're spreading the love that you've come to realize through a very painful process, but it got you here. Yeah. And I guess that's just how it goes sometimes, but you're here. That's what matters.
Yeah. I'd like to say one more thing.
Just
to put a little bow on this, man. I've also been given the gracious opportunity to counsel men who have been in accidents. Working with the hospital and Dr. Hinchcliffe and my phenomenal orthopedic therapists, my OTs and my PTs, they've given me the task to be able to talk to other men and women who have been in terrible accidents as like almost just a voice of reason. Like, you can do this, right? Even if it's a little encouragement. So if you're going through something physical, reach out to me. Like, I will help you, because we don't have to go through shit alone. We're not supposed to, right?
And that's a unique gift that you can now offer others that I couldn't. My words wouldn't mean as much to those people, but they probably mean a lot coming from somebody that's been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And they need to see it, right?
Yeah.
To see is to believe. If they're laying there and they're going through that stuff and you're looking at them going, I was right there and look where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Hope, inspiration.
Occupational therapy, physical therapy, love. It just works, right? And I'm a testament to that. And it's not all what I did, right? It's just sometimes it's just letting things happen. But I love it, man. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for coming. You approached me and I was like, huh, what? And you started telling me your story. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I could see it in your eyes. I'm like, this dude is got a story, and I could see his eyes are bright and shiny, and I could see he's awake, and I just can't wait. And I didn't even ask you much. I told you, I'm like, I don't even want to know. Just come on and just tell me the whole thing on the show.
Yeah.
So it was beautiful, more beautiful than I thought it could have been. I am honored to know you deeper and better. I'm stoked that you're a fan of Tattoo. I'm stoked that you're a fan of Patrick. Sounds like we'll be seeing more of you. You got some more skin still to cover.
Yeah.
We're not going nowhere, so I look forward to all that. And God bless you in what you're doing for the world and for others around you in the AA group and in the physical therapy trauma group for the physical trauma people. God bless you in that. I wish you only the best, and it's been an honor today. So thank you, my friend.
Heck yeah. Thanks, man.
Hey, man. Right there. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate the fans that repeat, come back to the show. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.